Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the current, the North Central Region Water Network's Speed Networking webinar series. The network is an extension-led collaboration among land-grant universities and our partners in 12 Midwestern states. I'm Rebecca Power, and I'm the director of the North Central Region Water Network, and I will be your moderator for the day. The purpose of the current is to increase access to university extension programming and research that can strengthen water resource management across the Midwest. And our topic today is innovative approaches to manure management. Our format is three 10-minute presentations with questions and discussion at the end. And one of our presenters is having a few computer problems, and our technical assistance person, Janice, is helping her right now, so we may need to reorganize the sessions today, but hopefully we'll have Mary Wicks on, and you'll have all three of your presenters. If not, that means that each of our other two presenters will have a little bit more time. Okay, so I already mentioned the format of the session, and what we'll do is we'll wait to have questions at the end. So if you could submit your questions in the chat box, which you should see in the lower left-hand portion of your screen, we will harvest those questions and sort them if need be and give them to presenters at the end. Our presenters today are Jeffrey Jacquet from South Dakota State University, and he's going to be talking about the pathways for information transfer among manure nutrient management professionals. Mary Wicks is going to be talking about the evolution of the Manure Expo for manure nutrient management education, and she's from Ohio State. And then finally, Shelby Burlew from Michigan State University Extension is going to be talking about the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. And as I said, we may be switching order to have Mary go at the end, so we can make sure that we can have her voice as well as her slides. That said, let's go to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Jeffrey Jacquet. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology and Rural Studies at South Dakota State University. Dr. Jacquet has performed social and economic impact analyses of unconventional oil and gas development, sociological analyses of energy development in areas across the U.S., and has also worked with a number of universities and extension agencies. He is the principal investigator of a new NSF-funded project entitled Fostering Cross-Disciplinary Research on Energy Development. And his PhD is from Cornell University. So Jeffrey, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's good to be here. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So just going to talk a little bit about a project that myself and a number of folks had performed over the last year or so, looking at sort of information pathways amongst manure management professionals, the ways that manure management professionals sort of get their information, disseminate their information when it comes to this topic. And I think this picture sort of sums up maybe the theoretical approach, in that in a topic such as manure management, you have this really complicated array of different people who work on the issue, ranging from university researchers to university extension to government regulators to agricultural producers to all sorts of other people, who are sort of in the agricultural industry, supply chain. You have consultants. You have, I guess, a whole array of actors. And so our research questions basically were, how do people access information about this topic? What sort of products do people use to either receive information about this or to disseminate information? And sort of the second part of this project, which I won't be going into, is looking at a decision tree that sort of incorporates the findings of this research. And so there's a fairly large project team, and the team had sort of gotten together and put together a survey that was targeted towards manure management professionals, asking them these questions on information source and delivery relevance. And we did a pilot test in the state of South Dakota. I guess this would be in 2014 and early 2015, and then we did a national survey in 2015. And here's the sort of the larger national team, and these folks sort of contributed to the development of the survey and also in the survey distribution. And then the sort of the core folks that were working on this project, Aaron Cordes at South Dakota State University, Nicole Everton, who's in Washington State, and a number of other people sort of worked on the actual survey and crunching the numbers, including myself and graduate student Michelle Cassou, who did a lot of the statistical analyses. And so the questions we were asking on this national survey were sort of level of knowledge on the issue, the importance of the issue, and their sort of day-to-day activities, who they work for and the type of organization they work for, years of experience, and sort of what part of manure management do they work on, what is the natural resource concerns that they are sort of attuned to in their job, and then information sources used and the barriers to their use, and then informational products that they sort of distribute or disseminate and the barriers to that dissemination, and then collaborations and barriers to relationships. And I'm going to focus on this talk, since I only have a few minutes, on information sources used and the barriers to their use. So we ended up getting about 900 respondents nationwide, about 600 of those who completed the survey in full, and 300 and some that completed at least part of the survey. We received responses all over the country, although there's a number of states that sort of had a higher degree of response than other states. A lot of that had to do with their distribution methodology, which is basically sort of a snowball sampling technique. We email listservs, sort of professional networks, and we ask those people to forward it on to additional colleagues that they might have that aren't inside the network, and we sort of repeat this process over the course of several months to get as many online responses as we could. We don't know how many. We don't really have a response rate because we don't know how many people actually did receive the survey, but we figure this is a fair number of survey responses, however. And just to give you a sense of who we ended up surveying, we had 189 university researchers or extension personnel, 155 government non-regulatory agency, which is we're sort of, I think includes the NRCS people and a couple of other sort of I guess boutique government agencies, and then government regulatory agencies. And we had about 100 producers that answered the survey, and a whole host of other folks in different categories. And just looking at the level of engagements, looking at how much they knew about the issue and sort of how important the issue was to them in their day-to-day activities, you can see some pretty close tracking there. This finding was interesting to us. This just looks at the age and gender distribution of our respondents, and you can see that in terms of the gender distribution, it's I guess not symmetrical across the different age categories, and this probably reflects a lot of people's experience out there in this industry, would be my sense. And so today, just want to talk about some of the organizations with the sort of the most responses: University Extension, Government Regulatory Agency, Government Non-Regulatory Agency, and producers. And we have a lot more data, and we also have a lot more data yet to sort of analyze and to look through. We are preparing a couple of papers right now that look at information sources and information dissemination, but we have a lot of other areas that we can can further examine. Just looking at the area of concern across all these different professionals, you can see that water was by far and away the sort of the most important concern as identified. With some of these other areas, some of them were surprising that they're sort of less identified as less important in these professionals' sort of day-to-day activities. But obviously water is a big one. So just looking at information sources and their relevance, this is based on the organizations that they were employed with. And so the blue is University Extension, the red is Government Regulatory Agency, green is Government Non-Regulatory Agency, the dark green is producers. You can see that for just about every category that the field or farm setting was by far the most relevant for most categories. And then sort of science-based websites, consultation, professional development settings. These were all the most relevant sources of information across these groups. And then classroom settings, decision tools, social media. I think the one mislabeled, or the unlabeled category there is news media. These had lower relevance across pretty much all these groups. And this is the same data, as just grouping it now by the organization type. You can see that again, the field and farm setting was amongst the most relevant across all these different organization types, and was by far and away the most relevant for the producers, the science-based sites, and so on. And again, you can see that social media, news, and popular press, sort of the web-based settings, and classroom settings are sort of in this area that is a little bit less relevant, and also the decision tools. We did a factor analysis on this data, which just basically looks at how people were answering this relevance question, and then groups those responses together. If people seem to be answering this relevance in a similar fashion across these different types of information sources, and what we found is that there's sort of three categories in the way people responded to this question on relevance, and that the classroom setting, the professional development setting, the field and farm setting, and the web setting, people tended to answer the relevance similarly. And then the consultation, research paper, fact sheet, and science-based websites, people tended to answer those questions in a similar manner. And then the news and popular press, the social media, the decision tools, and the other category, people tended to answer that in a similar fashion. And we're sort of struggling with what's the common denominator there. In one way, the classroom setting, professional development setting, it's sort of a group setting. It's more of a hands-on technical setting, whereas the consultation, research paper, fact sheet, it's more of an individual learning experience. And then I guess the other types of information source are maybe non-technical and also tend to be more of an individual setting. Now, just looking at barriers to using these information sources, one thing that we found is that a lot of people identified that there's no barriers to use for a lot of these. But if you take away the no barriers to use, you can see that time commitment is a big challenge for a lot of these. And if it's not time commitment, it's low source credibility. And so the big challenges for the press, for social media, is that there's low source credibility. For decision tools, it seems to be lack access is the largest one. And then just sort of in sum with this data on issue relevancy, one thing that stood out to us was the decision tools, which has been really a focus for a lot of people in extension, and sort of identified as a way to get research information into the hands of people in a more practical setting, that people didn't really seem to care for the decision tools very much. And is that either is that because maybe the question was poorly worded, or people didn't understand what the decision tools were, or is it in fact that people really don't like decision tools very much and they sort of see them in a similar light as social media or popular press and so on? And there was a difference in focus on the activities, on the sort of issues of concern, and also the information sources based on university extension. University extensions tended to group all information sources as more relevant than say producers, which tended to have lower relevancy across all the categories. And there were state and regional differences. I don't have time to get into here. And also a lot of different areas that are sort of worthy of further analysis. And so obviously, this information, the idea here is to figure out ways of getting information into the hands of people who can use it. And as to our knowledge, there really hasn't been too many studies that look at sort of how information sources are used, or sort of the credibility of different information sources across all these different components of an industry like this. And if you have more information, you're welcome to contact me, and also sort of the PIs on this project, Drs. Cordes and Embertson. I'd be happy to talk to you more about this. This is just sort of a really brief summary. We have a ton of more results looking at information dissemination, collaboration between these different groups. And so this is just really a sort of a brief summary of what we've been up to. And so with that, I guess I'll turn it over to the moderator.
Excellent, Jeffrey. Thank you. And as you said, obviously there's a lot of information there, and I know you're going through it quickly, and the purpose really is to introduce you to Jeffrey and Aaron and Nicole, so you know where to go for more information. And also, again, we will have discussion at the end of the session today. So please, if you have any questions related to what Jeffrey's presented, please stick those in the chat box, and we will get to them after Mary Wicks. And hopefully Mary's microphone will be working. So Mary, can we hear you?
Can you?
Yes.
All right.
Excellent. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and introduce Mary. So Mary Wicks is the coordinator for the Ohio Composting and Manure Management Program at The Ohio State University's Agricultural Research Center in Worcester, Ohio. She has 17 years of experience working with manure management professionals and Ohio State faculty to facilitate collaboration on research and outreach projects. She has a bachelor's degree in geology from Virginia Tech and a master's degree from the University of Houston, and another master's degree in teaching from the University of Alaska. So welcome, Mary, and go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to get my adrenaline level down after my panic. So I want to talk about the manure, actually the North American Manure Expo today. So the first thing I want to do is tell you just kind of what it is, and then I'm going to go through a little bit of the history of it, how it's evolved, and also what we're doing in Ohio this year. So it's an annual educational and demonstration event, and it's composed of basically three components: a huge industry trade show, manure technology demonstrations, and that's that farm field kind of setting that gets the producers out there, and then also educational seminars. It is currently overseen by the NAME board, which is North American Manure Expo board, which is headed up by Kevin Erb, and I want to give him credit because he's been involved since the beginning of this, and he gave me a lot of the information that I'm presenting today, and also photos. And it's a traveling show, which is why I'm presenting it. We're doing it in Ohio this year, and you can see from the map all the states and Canada where it has been held in the past. So if we look at the beginning of it, is in 2001. It was actually at that time called the Upper Midwest Manure Handling Expo. It was in response to Wisconsin applicators, custom applicators, asking for some demonstrations side by side of agitation equipment and manure application equipment, so that they could really get a good comparison of them. So they worked with University of Wisconsin Extension and put that program on, and it was very, very successful. It was a lot of work, so they did it again, but they did it in 2003. They skipped a year. They actually increased their participation to 700 people, which is pretty amazing. That was also very successful. They decided to do it again in 2005. They moved next door to Minnesota. And then it was held annually from 2005 through 2011, changing states each time. So the chance to kind of broaden the audience and get the message and information to different regions. But you can see there was a lot of differences in the titles of the program. It kept changing names, it kept changing looks. Every state was not starting totally from scratch in the planning, but they were responsible for almost all the details. There was some input from the Nutrient Applicators Association out of Wisconsin, and but it was, well, I'm going to say random. There was a consistency to the programs, but it wasn't a real coordinated effort. So then in 2012, the University of Wisconsin, and I think led by Kevin Erb at that point, pulled together a team of 7 states that had hosted before with extension professionals, industry professionals, and they really said, let's look at a different model, let's see how we can come up with a framework and what that would look like for this program. Let's try and get a little bit more consistent, a little stronger base for it. So what they came up with is this program, which is technically owned by the Professional Nutrient Applicators Association of Wisconsin, and it's overseen by the NAME board, which has representatives from several states. And Kevin Erb is currently the president of that board. There's a third party, which is the Annex Business Media, which I always call Ag Annex. They actually publish Manure Management. It's a Canadian company. They serve as the show manager, and I'll talk about why I think that's a really important piece here in a bit. And then you have the host state is involved, and they are chosen more than a year in advance, and their primary goal is to focus on the education program. Clearly they have to be involved in all aspects, but really they get to put their energy into that. There's a single mission, professionalism in manure management, and I would say professionalism in the program itself, and you can see there's more consistency in the look of the logos over the last 3 years. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that consistency, but also the flexibility that this framework provides. Again, it's actually the Annex Business Media is the show manager. They take care of the entire industry trade show. So they recruit and organize, lay out the maps for all the indoor and outdoor exhibitors, all the sponsors. They handle all the contracts with them. And in 2015, where it was held in Pennsylvania, they had 90 exhibitors. That's huge. And that's a huge piece if the organizing state doesn't have to deal with any of that. They handle a lot of the publicity. So they have Manure Manager publication, so that's a hard copy publication. They have a really good website and a listserv, so that's really provides a lot of information through that. They work with state and local media, and then also the host planning team will work with media that they have contacts with, but they handle a huge piece of that publicity. They handle a lot of the administrative details, all the budgeting, finance, paying the bills, invoicing, that kind of thing, and a lot of the logistics, such as putting the program together and getting that published. And then there's a consistent website. So it used to be that you would have to find which state it's being hosted in, try and find their website. And I tried that. It was often hard to do, to find out information about the current expo. So there's some real consistent pieces, which is a big help. But there's also flexibility. So the host state gets to really put together, they choose the site where they're going to have it. Sometimes it's on farm. This year we're doing it at the Farm Science Review site, which is a big show site but has agricultural land adjacent to it that allows us to do demonstrations. But this offers a lot of flexibility. So you can kind of set the program as you want. You can focus on the educational topics that are really important to your state, surrounding states. It's a chance to highlight some of the research happening in your state, some of the initiatives that are happening, some of the regulations. So from all over. and you get to do the demonstrations. And in the last couple of years, tours have been added to the program. It started as a one-day program. It's now a two-day program. So there's on-farm tours. Again, that's really, I think, critical to getting farmers and people out and learning from each other. There's a lot of benefits to the host state from this model. In my experience, I was involved when we hosted in 2008, and I'm involved in the planning, so co-chair of the planning committee this time. The collaboration with the board and also having a show manager, I think, is really critical. We sat in on a lot of the meetings last year, so we were really prepared going into the planning session. We were able to go to the Expo last year, and our costs were actually covered, to be able to kind of see what's happening, make notes, and figure out what we wanted to do and really start our planning early. They also provide that logistics and financial support by recruiting those exhibitors and sponsors. You've got a decent operating budget, which allows you to do things and not always having to be looking at, oh, how do we cut our costs, how do we cut our costs. And it also, I think, provides that professionalism, which I think goes to what Jeffrey was talking about with that credibility. You've got this consistent program and it's building, and the everybody from the exhibitors to the people attending kind of know if they show up, it's going to be a well-run, well-organized program. So there's a greater chance that people are going to be involved in it. And I think that's really, really key. And it gives you a national presence. The map with all the little red dots shows where all the people came from Pennsylvania to attend the Pennsylvania show last year. So they come from quite a distance. There's benefits clearly to the attendees. It's a very diverse learning environment. So you've got, you know, seminars. We'll have 3 or 4 concurrent seminar sessions. So they have different learning environments. They've got the demonstrations, quite a few demonstrations, the tours, a lot of ways to learn. Continuing education credits are offered. There's a lot of opportunities for networking, and I think it's a lot of fun. The picture in the bottom is Kevin Erb actually spilling manure intentionally last year to show how to clean it up. They did the top 10 rejected slogans were on the back of the t-shirts last year. They did a contest that actually made national news for people to submit slogans. And then finally, I think I'm almost out of time here. This is just kind of an outline of what we'll be doing in Ohio this year. We're going to have a couple tours. We want to do some targeted stuff for small farms, everything from buffaloes to goats. Those are the 2 farms we hope to visit. We'll have the agitation demonstrations. We'll do the application demonstrations for liquid and solid manure, but we'll have some other things that are we're doing some on-farm research with. In this state, the smoking tiles are a really good one to show preferential flow to tile drainage. The fact that you've got worm bores and cracks that things travel through. Lots of seminars and really good 2 days. And that's going to be August 3rd and 4th. There's the website that I mentioned. We haven't updated it all yet, but we'll be doing that pretty soon, and my contact information. And that's all.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary. I'm glad we got the technology worked out so that we could hear you and see your slides. And in order to, okay, and again, just a reminder, please, if you have questions for Mary or for Jeffrey, stick them in the chat box so we can ask them at the end of the session. And we will go on to Shelby now. Our final presenter for today, Shelby Burlew, is a livestock environmental educator with the Michigan State University Extension. I stuck the in from the Ohio State there. She works with all livestock operations, regardless of size or species, through the state to mitigate or prevent environmental issues. Her focus is on development of educational programs and or tools to address manure management, odor management, and mortality management. She works with farms to create new or expand their current livestock facilities and helping with siting. And her extension efforts also include developing content on climate variability and how it affects livestock operations. So welcome, Shelby, and go right ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Rebecca, and I'm glad to be here this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and get started and try and get through all of this in about 10 minutes. So I'll go ahead and get going. So the MAEAP program, or the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program, was developed by a group of farmers, commodity groups, state and federal agencies, conservation and environmental groups, essentially to provide a venue for farmers to become better educated about management options in order to help protect and enhance the quality of natural resources. So it's not a government program, it's not a regulatory program, but rather it's a partnership effort unified for the protection of natural resources and the advancement of positive community and neighbor relations. So the MAEAP program is an innovative, proactive, and voluntary program that essentially helps farms of all sizes and all commodities throughout the entire state voluntarily prevent or minimize agricultural pollution risks. And so as you can see, this program, emphasizing that partner and that support, that partnership support. So I just went ahead and threw in some of the logos of the partners and supporters that we have of the program, and it continues to grow. So I just kind of wanted to show that that really good support that we have from partners from across the state. So how does MAEAP work? So this program is designed to reduce farmers' legal and environmental risks through essentially a three-phase process. To get verified, producers first attend what's called a Phase 1 educational meeting to learn more about MAEAP and associated topics. A lot of times, Phase 1 meetings would be could be extension meetings, or workshops, or field days, or industry meetings. So after that, a farmer then works with a local conservation district technician to complete a farm-specific risk assessment. Each assessment looks at the farm and evaluates different aspects, especially areas that could minimize environmental risks and potential agricultural pollution. The farmer then develops a plan and works according to their own schedule to correct any of these areas and make the necessary improvements. Local conservation district staff also helps identify available cost share funding for practice implementation. And then after this step, the farmer is ready to arrange for an inspection from the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, a MAEAP verifier, who ensures that the farmer has implemented environmentally sound practices and has the appropriate records and management strategies in place. So after becoming MAEAP verified, the farm can then display a MAEAP sign signifying that MAEAP partners, including the state of Michigan, recognize that the farm is environmentally assured. So MAEAP is a voluntary partners-driven program that provides local, confidential, boots-on-the-ground, one-on-one assistance to farmers to help them assess the environmental risks on their own farming operations and develop an action plan to address those risks. It also helps them reduce their liability and become verified with the MAEAP program. What it really does is help farmers see their farm differently, essentially as a whole, that they can manage for the benefits of their farm, their environment, or for their operation and the environment. And so what I have here is the current, what they call assist tools. They're bulletins that are developed. These are what the Conservation District MAEAP technicians take out on the farm and work with producers. And so as you can see that, 5 out of the 6 assist bulletins addresses manure and nutrient management in some form or fashion, whether that's from manure storage on the farmstead to field application, as well as addressing emergency response. And so what I've got here is essentially It's an example from our livestock assist bulletin, so of the questions that we ask. So this is looking at a producer's manure spreading plan and some of the questions that we ask, the records or the evidence that we look for. So looking at these questions, if it's in a blue box, those are required questions for MAEAP verification. So as producers answer those questions, they have to be in that either that low risk or that medium risk category. We also look specifically at the Michigan's right to farm generally accepted agricultural management practices, or the GAMPs. That's a foundation for this program, as well as looking at state and federal regulations. So MAEAP is becoming a national model, which is pretty exciting, especially through our partners. It's gained a lot of national exposure. The MAEAP program was used as a model for a national template for ag certainty programs through the National Association of State Conservation Agencies. And most recently, they have implemented essentially a MAEAP clone in Missouri, which is being called the Agriculture Stewardship Assurance Program. And they literally ask for all of the materials that we have here in Michigan, so that way they can implement something very similar in the state of Missouri. And so when looking at why farmers participate in this program, there are a lot of reasons, everything from environmental concerns to liabilities, insurance reductions, following state and federal laws, being a good neighbor, utilizing this as a marketing opportunity. There's just a lot of reasons that farmers in Michigan participate in this program. Things that MAEAP addresses, these are just an example of the things that MAEAP addresses throughout those assist tool bulletins. And in fact, an interesting fact from the MAEAP program is that phosphorus and nitrogen reduced on MAEAP farms could have grown enough algae to cover over 100%, or to cover 100% of Houghton Lake at approximately a 1/4 inch depth. And we're able to get that information from the reporting systems that our MAEAP technicians in here in Michigan have to do on a monthly basis. And so these are some of our most current numbers looking at the environmental gains. So we currently have over 10,000 farms participating with nearly 2,900 verifications throughout the state. You can kind of look through and read and see, you know, the sediment and the phosphorus and the nitrogen that is being reduced due to farmers participating in this program, which is very exciting. We've got a great partnership with Michigan Farm Bureau, and this was a handout that was created, and essentially it's a great visual for both producers and non-farmers to take a look and see just one of the environmental gains from this assurance program. So really great communication on this program. Looking at MAEAP stewardship practices, we can see that over 700,000 acres receiving pesticides in Michigan have approved pest management plans. You know, over 14,000 acres of filter strips have been installed. There's gullies that have been stabilized. And annually, just over $1.2 million is spent for practice implementation by farmers working towards a MAEAP verification. And so this is something that's very much supported by our governor here in Michigan. And so in fact, when he first joined on as governor, the first bills that he put into legislation dealt with the MAEAP program, so it codified it into law and it gave some incentives. So again, this is still very much a voluntary program, but it gives some real incentives for farmers to participate and be a part of this program. And then these just last few slides, this shows local involvement. So, as we have breakfast on the farm events here in Michigan, we might have those events on MAEAP verified farms. You'll see a lot of farms on Facebook showing their MAEAP sign, whether it's through newspaper articles or social media. It's really good local involvement. It also brings up a lot of great community awareness. From my perspective, it's great to see an article about a farm that's been MAEAP verified in a local newspaper, because it shows the community that farmers are doing their part to be environmentally friendly. Also, some great opportunity for promotions. MAEAP verified farms, especially when we're looking at fruit and vegetable producers, can really use this program to promote their farm. They can use the MAEAP sign to help market the farm's environmental stewardship. And I'm just about out of time, so I just want to go ahead and have my contact information up here, and I look forward to answering any questions you guys might have.
Perfect, Shelby. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got some questions that have come in, but please, again, stick your questions in the chat box. I think I'm going to go back to the beginning here, and there's a question for Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, you had a number of categories for respondents in the Manure Pathways research, and there was a fairly large other category, if I remember right. Can you give us a sense of who might have been in that other category? And just remember, you're going to have to turn on the talk button too to answer.
Oh, there we go. So I can, and so we had we had commodity or advocacy group, nonprofit, private service group, for-profit private service group, or sales, news and media were the main categories. Oh, and then tribal government or tribal agency. And then we had an actual other category as well. And we did have a fair number of responses from these other categories, and there were some sort of interesting differences. However, just for the sake of this presentation, we didn't really go into the private service groups or the advocacy groups and so on. And I did want to mention there. I saw another question there on the decision tools, the curious case of the decision tools, and how it was worded. And so I actually went to the survey and looked to see how we worded that. And so the way we worded it was, in terms of their list of choices, decision tools, parentheses, e.g. smartphone/tablet apps, models, assessment tools, in parentheses. And so there's some questioning on our part as to whether that was maybe described sort of properly, or the best way to describe what decision tools, what we meant by that for people who were filling out the survey. Or if, most of these people were professionals, are professionals, there were 100 or so producers, but the rest of these people are sort of, this is their job. They're paid to work in the manure management industry in one form or another. So we've done a little bit of analysis looking at the way people have answered the decision tools questions. It does appear that people who are younger tended to respond more positively to that source of information. And there's some ways that we can break that down further, looking at different categories of organization type. But that's something we can definitely look at.
Janice, did that answer your... Excellent, thank you, Jeffrey. And Janice, did that answer your question for now as well?
Yes, thanks.
Great. Okay, and Mary, a question for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about how Extension is coordinating programming in the Manure Expo? I mean, obviously there's strong extension participation from multiple states, but I was curious, you know, how you decide who's doing what programming or who takes the lead for what, and even, you know, are there programming needs that you have that aren't being fulfilled, or that, you know, you'd like to have other extension folks participate in?
Okay, so we have, I should backtrack a little bit. We've had the Manure Science Review, which is an Ohio program that we've run, which is kind of similar, but I call the Expo like the Manure Science Review on steroids. Much smaller program that we've run every year. So the planning team from that, we have 3 co-chairs. It's myself, Glenn Arnold, who's an extension field specialist in manure management, and Amanda Doritas, who's an extension agent. We've run that for about 5 years as a team. So we are actually chairs of the steering committee for this. And then Glenn's taking the role of leading the planning team for the demonstrations. Amanda's doing the tours and working with a local extension agent to pull those together because we want to keep them within an hour driving distance. And then I'm heading up the seminars. And I probably have the most involvement from people out of state. So Shelby's on our planning team for the seminars, and some people from Purdue. I don't want to say, I forget where else. At the moment, I just drew a blank. So we're pulling them in that way, but mostly we're the 3 who are kind of leading the effort in Ohio. We also have on our steering committee people from our Department of Agriculture, both of the livestock environmental permitting area and the they just changed the name, the soil and water conservation arena, and also from soil water conservation districts and NRCS in the state. So those are all, and also some representatives from industry and our Professional Applicator Association. So does that answer the question?
I guess I was more interested in, like, so that's helpful to understand who's at the table doing what, but when it comes down to the days of the expo, you know, and providing educational programming, and maybe I'm just not understanding the model.
Okay.
But yeah, like how,
right.
like who, yeah, like how are University of Nebraska-Lincoln educators participating, or how are you know, what kind of programming are people providing, that kind of thing?
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll target extension educators who have different expertise in different areas, or who you know, we know can do a good program on different pieces of that. So they will be speakers at the seminars. They will help with demonstrations. I'm looking for my notes here. I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But that's the main way they'll be involved. You know, and any volunteering, we'll always hit people up to volunteer, but we will have speakers from Extension talking about the programs that they either operate in their county or in the area, or you know, throughout the state. Food and safety issues. Some of the areas we're looking at are again, some small farm stuff. So we have some Extension educators identified with that. So they're mostly county Extension agents who then, kind of an evolving extension model in the state. So we have specialists in different areas, but we also have the county agents who are oftentimes kind of quasi-specialists or act in that role too. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure I'm answering your question, and partly that is because we don't have all the details laid out yet. You know, we've got names identified, but we haven't started to make the final cut on the who's speaking and confirming speakers at this point.
Yeah, got it. So it looks like it's a great opportunity to reach a particular audience that's important for nutrient management and important for water quality. So if people are interested in helping with programming but may not have been as aware of what was going on with the expo, can they contact you?
They're more than welcome to do that, yes. Yeah, because I think there are still opportunities.
Excellent. Okay, great. And then we...
And one thing I forgot to mention was that go ahead. I meant to say when I was talking before that in Pennsylvania they had 2,000 people attend the expo. So we're hoping to have the same. We're planning on that.
Great. And David asks, how far into the future is Manure Expo locked up in different states? Mary, is your talk button on?
No, I'm sorry. I know in 2017 it will be in Wisconsin, and I know that their plan is, because they do own the program, have it come back to Wisconsin every 4 to 5 years. I am not sure if they've planned out further than that who would be in 2018, but I would suggest contacting Kevin Erb if anyone's interested in hosting in 2018 or 19.
Okay, excellent. And there's a number of folks that have, just to call attention to a number of folks pointing out the pharmacist roots of the MAEAP program, which Shelby referred to, but it just seems like there's a number of folks on the phone here that are really pointing to those roots and how far things have evolved over time. So Shelby, that's great to see. Any other questions from the group? Okay, great. Well, let's thank our presenters again, and their contact information is again here for you to see. This webinar will be archived at northcentralwater.org, and it will also be on YouTube, and it will now also be archived on e-extension, so you can find it in a number of different places. We have upcoming sessions coming up. We're going to skip March because we have our North Central Region Water Network conference coming up in March, but in April we will have a presentation about a developing Land-Grant University Extension Soil Health Network in the North Central region. In May, developing capacity for local watershed management. And then in June, moving over fully to the urban side there, developing green infrastructure for water resource management. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and look forward to having you participate in future webinars. Have a good day.
Thank you.